Have to mute it and go back to that. Okay, the event is muted and we are live. And you talking about? We go.
Okay, we'll call a meeting to order. 8:15. Roll call. All members are present. I did have a discussion with Chair Olson this week. He is interviewing a person to take Chuck Wagner's spot in the town of Red River. So when that interview process is done, we will appoint another person to the Land and Water Committee from the full board. Approval and repair of the agenda. I'll need a motion to approve the agenda as read.
So moved. I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval and repair of last month's minutes. Hope you all had a chance to read them. Anybody see anything on there?
I'll make a motion we approve, Aaron.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we'll go to public comment. We'll do 3 minutes per person, same as we did when Chuck was here. We'll do 20 minutes max. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak? Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak?
Sue Weiser, Town of West Kewaunee. I refer to my True Colors email that I sent you folks after the last month's meeting. And in it was that infamous motion to do nothing and keep the status quo. I'm not sure what that means. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak?
Nancy Utash, Town of Pierce. I was hoping Chuck would be here today. I actually wanted to thank Chuck for his leadership on this committee and on the county board. Chuck has done a lot to shine the light on the really severe problems that are going on in our county. Wall Street Journal, January 2019, page. My house received several copies of this. I don't buy the Wall Street Journal, from all over the nation, of people that saw that we landed on the front page for booming farms, poisoned wells. And it opens up, Chuck Wagner has given up on drawing clean water from his faucet. The second portion, which was a full page, water pits farmers against the neighbors. We know that happens in this county, don't we? Such a beautiful place to live, such a nice community, beautiful landscape, and yet the situation of contaminated water has ripped this community apart. Chuck is also the person that took the photo of the jars, the mason jars of water that were contaminated. That pretty much has become the poster for the water of Kewaunee County. So I thank Chuck for that photo because it is used all the time to show the kinds of problems we have going on here. He also took the picture of his granddaughters over their tub that was brown and yellow. I'm sure his granddaughters still can't take a bath in his house without wondering if it's contaminated or not. So I do thank Chuck for all the work that he's done on this committee and on the county board. And really, like I said, front page, Wall Street Journal, read nationally and internationally. So people know Kewaunee County. I would say pretty much we are the ground zero for agricultural problems that are focused on in the nation. It used to be Yakima Valley. We're following clearly in the footsteps of what happened in Yakima, and it looks like it's going to take legal to really hone in on what's going here and what threatens the people that live here. The newest report about gastrointestinal diseases in the county. For many years, I've attended the health committee meetings and discussed why do we have such a high incidence of that happening? And I've been told many times that it was people traveling out of our country and coming back that were sick. But indeed, it's actually the people that live here getting sick from what's going on with the water. I also want to add that I find it to be a conflict of interest that Peninsula Pride would be one of the partners on the latest water
Nancy, your
research.
3 minutes are up.
Well, we have 20 minutes, so I'm going to finish up
Your
here.
3 minutes are up. Per
And
person,
I
so
think it's
thank you for that.
important.
Seeing there's nobody else here from the public.
I think it's
wishing to speak,
important
we'll
that
move on to
people
department
realize
reports.
that that is a conflict of interest, and Peninsula Pride should not be involved in the research that takes place there. Just as
Nancy,
none of the
Nancy,
environmental
please, your 3 minutes are up.
organizations should also not be involved. It's a conflict
Nancy,
of
your 3 minutes
interest.
are up.
It's a conflict of
Thank you.
interest.
We'll move on to department reports.
Thank you.
Okay, so animal waste storage permits, there was none in July. NR 151 updates for June and July. Travis has sent 70 second notices for those who are still claiming that haven't called him to get permission. That's not unnormal. The letter falls on the staff, so in order for them to claim credits next year for farmland preservation, they have to have their land walk this year. So he'll work on getting those done.
7 or 70?
70,
And is that per landowner or is that per farm?
that's landowner, because the farms don't take the credit that they rent, the landowner does. The landowner is in charge of making sure that they are in full compliance. And he's done 24 walkovers for a little over 4,000 acres walked. So he has been pretty much living in the fields, minus the day that it's pouring rain. Compliance schedules. 3 were in non-compliance or had issues, mainly the new setback of the 5 feet minimum tillage setback. So those he's working with, and what they'll do is when they take off the crop, they'll keep that as a buffer and then let that into natural vegetation. And then there was some recommendations for manure storage abandonment and roof cutters. So a lot of those will take care of the abandonment and the roof gutters with SWARM money. Go ahead.
When he's done walking the land, if there is no issues on the land, is there a letter sent
Yep.
or something?
So 21 received a full compliance letter.
So the farm does receive that.
The farm does not, the landowners. Because the landowners are the ones
All
that
right,
take the
but
credit.
Even if he's walking our land, we'll receive.
Yes, so if
it,
he
yes.
walks
Okay.
your land, yes, you will get a letter with all the parcels and information, and then any problems, you'll get a schedule of compliance. Or else you'll have a full compliance letter, and we're required to walk your land once every 4 years. And then he's working on the next set of farm nutrient management for farmer education grants. That's where farmers come in and do their own nutrient management plans, which has been increasing greatly in the county. So it's been a really good program that Travis has been doing. A lot of the smaller guys will start writing their own plans, and then they understand how manure is actually used as a nutrient, and a lot of education goes into that. So he'll be doing that again this year. So that's all for NR 151.
And-
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nick.
For the nutrient management work that Travis is doing, is there any type of cost sharing or grant funding available to producers that are interested?
Yeah, so he writes a grant for the nutrient management farmer education grant. So that's all funded through DACAP. So he writes that grant yearly, we get so much money, and then there's money for the farmers to do their own soil sampling, to come in and write their own plans and everything like that. So that's all done through Travis. And I don't remember how many participants we had, but I think it was like 15 that are writing their own plans.
In the nutrient management plan process, when they write their own plans, does Travis go over setback recommendations
Yep.
for the small
All of
farms
that's
and all
done.
that?
Yep, so we go over all of NR 151. They actually have a computer in front of them. They're drawing their fields, they're learning their setbacks, they're learning what rates can go on those fields. that's all put into Snap Plus and they learn how to do it in Snap Plus.
All our tile inlets, outlets, all that stuff.
Everything.
is in there.
Yep. And then they come back every year to update their plan. So, yeah, it's gone really well. Conservation plans for approval. Emma for Finnendale added a few new parcels that they bought that were already in their nutrient management plan. And then we had a new plan for Gary Farron. He'll be a new FPP participant for that. DNR has not done any notices of non-compliance, so nothing came out of DNR, nothing for the groundwater protection ordinance, no spills in the last month, so there's been nothing through chapter 39. Not many people have been spreading because manure that is going out on alfalfa fields, and then it's been really raining, so because we are able to draw down the pits, there hasn't had to be too much going out, which has been nice. And every time we get, we have emails that we get from the National Weather Association or whatever that, NOAA. And we send those out to all the haulers previously, the day before, saying we're gonna get a large rain event. We put in there, we recommend that you do not spread because, you know, we have 1 to 2 inches of rain or blah, blah, blah. But all that information goes out to every hauler. So if they do choose to haul and come back to us and say, we didn't know that there was a large event, we can say, yes, we did make you aware of that. And that's been working really well. So well testing, we had sampled 299 wells. We did get the bacteria results on this. So the 299, we had 68 with coliform bacteria. Coliform is not the E. coli. And then we had 8 E. coli, and they were kind of spread out through the whole county. Overall, we had 120 new wells for 40%. A number of those new wells were the ones with coliform bacteria. So when we're talking to those landowners, a number of them did have the loose well caps because they've never been educated about that before. And when I'm talking to them, I wish I had the nitrate data ahead of time, because if you have coliform bacteria and your nitrates are like 0.1, it's most likely caused by your well cap or bugs getting in there. Now, if you have coliform bacteria and your nitrates are over 2, then that's saying that, you know, it's some source that's also providing, you know, agriculture, septic, or, you know, lawn fertilizer can also get all that into there. So without the nitrate data, which they're working on, I hopefully should have it by the end of this week, I'll be able to call a number of them back and have a further discussion. But I know our well pumping or our well drillers have been very busy in the last couple of weeks going out to these landowners and contacting them. Everyone who had an E. coli hit did get a letter from the lab and from Cindy. What we also did was our E. coli protocol. So everyone in a half-mile radius of that well got a letter saying that there was an E. coli positive within a half-mile radius of your well, which also got some more testing done. So that whole protocol went out. We give them DNR's information because I do not call the DNR if there's an E. coli because of confidentiality, but we provide all that information to the landowner. Results will be August 24th at 6:30 p.m. That's going to be a Zoom meeting. I have an email sent to Kevin Mazarek today as he will be setting up that entire Zoom meeting. And once I get that, it'll be going out to all the participants who gave us an email address. And then we'll also be posting that online, and Jennifer Gonzalez will do a press release with that information. So anyone who wants to partake can click on that Zoom meeting and go and listen to all the results. Kevin will be giving his overall presentation that he gives every time he comes here. And then there'll be a short question and answer because it's going to be really hard with the amount of participants on the phone call.
Do we know what time on August 24th?
It'll be 6:30 at night. Yep. But it was really good to have 120 new wells. So we're going to be doing this again in November. So I will also be targeting the shallow less than 20 feet to bedrock. I think we have 100 signed up now, which was my limit. We can do 300. And the same thing, so I want 200 at least in that shallow Silurian bedrock, the 0 to 20, because that's where we're gonna find out. And I'm targeting new landowners in that area, so hopefully, I'm sure we'll get all 300 as I've had a lot of extra phone calls.
Will you do repeats or you want 300 new wells?
We have 100 registered so far, and that was my limit for outside of the Silurian bedrock, because the grant we wrote was for under 20 feet. So some will be repeats, some will be, but the majority I'm hoping to get new participants. And then we're gonna write and submit the grant again for next year, and that'll just start being open up to the entire county, focusing on results. And this also could be why we have, 68 coliform and 8 E. coli, because we're also targeting our shallower areas. I won't know that until we do another round of testing next year, which doesn't focus on one kind of area, so. And I don't have the full results, so. But I was pretty happy with that. Zoning, sanitary has been really busy. Andrew has been doing most of the work out in the field with Paul, and then Paul's also been doing a lot of construction for, we're working on designs for several leachate plans, collection, and then some barnyards that are going to be going in. But they've been doing 10 soil inspections, 17 septic inspections, 28 inspection reports. I can't talk this morning. And then 17 permit applications. And then we did meet with Jeff last week on this. So everyone who hasn't done anything, so you can see the ones that Jeff is when it says Jeff is handling, they're already in the court systems. They've been issued citations. They're continuing to get citations if they don't do anything, and then he ends up bringing them into court. So for 2020, the ones that did not meet the 1-year deadline to prove soil compliance and has not called us and have said, hey, we're waiting on contractors, we have him lined up, they're getting citations. So those should have went out at the end of last week, or else they're going out the beginning of this week. So 2020 and 21, we're focusing on getting most of those citations out. So. And Jeff handles all those because then they're documented in the court system. That's all I have for department reports. If you guys have any
Any questions for the
On if an enforcement letter is sent out on these from 2020, obviously the documentation has not been provided for the septic system to date.
Yep.
The system's in place presumptively already. What type of inspection can go on from there, and what happens if a system is already in place and found that soils are not suitable?
Then they have, they get a letter that has to be replaced, and then they get someone to replace that system. So if the soils do not pass, then that system has to be replaced. If the soils pass, then they just have to continue to do the pumping schedule. Pumping and maintenance schedule.
From a liability standpoint, does that fall back on the general contractor? I mean, how did it get to that point that it was allowed to? And I'm not pointing blame at your office.
It's a really old set, the old systems
Okay.
that were in before rules changed.
Gotcha.
Probably pre-Glenn. So. Yeah, the systems that we would have, what we call as NI, no information.
Yep.
They all get a letter. They have to prove that their soils are suitable for the system that they have installed. If they are not suitable, then they get a new deadline to replace that entire system.
No other questions for Davina. We'll move on to cooperative agency reports. the USDA and NRCS. So anybody hear from them
Yeah,
today?
Laura didn't say anything, so.
UW Extension, Erica is not here, but she did send out a sheet on a combine cleaning clinic. Must have left it on the printer.
Yep, so it's I wrote down the details. It's a combine cleaning clinic, August 18th. And it's gonna be at the Royal Creek Feed Mill. I don't know any of the details or what it all involves, but you can call UW Extension to get the further details, and I believe you do have to pre-register.
Clark, do you probably can expand on this a little bit.
Well, I won't be able to attend it. I've got something else going on that day, but I was gonna say maybe they should include choppers too. Because this
Not bad.
water hemp and some of this stuff, I've never seen so much of it as I've seen in the fields this year. So you don't realize what one water hemp plant, you leave that go and what the following year, but in 3 years, it's across the whole field. I spent one day last week, one afternoon pulling stuff out of fields where I never had it before. And the seed does float because it comes down the waterway, and I see where the water jumped out of the waterway into the field, and that's where it's growing. So this problem is getting worse. It's not getting better. And I've been to meetings in Illinois where they talk about quad stacks. It's not corn. It's water hemp. That's resistant to 4 or 5 different modes of action right now. And we sure as hell don't want that up here. So we can control it, spraying residual products, not just straight Roundup. Early on, we had some fields we didn't get the residual on early because they needed to get planted. We came back later, but those are the fields where I've seen it. Stuff I put on early, it's been pretty much in check. So this is a problem, and it's only going to get worse. I feel we can thank our southern growers for not heeding the warning. 10, 15 years ago, I sat in on a meeting put on by Monsanto. We brought in a weed resistance specialist about 10 years ago. And I never knew this, but down in, where they grow cotton and soybeans, prior to Roundup Ready crops, cultivation took place, hand weeding took place, different modes of action were sprayed. Cotton's got to be sprayed almost like every 2 weeks. As soon as the Roundup Ready crops came, it was Roundup every 2 weeks. It didn't take too long to get resistant weeds. And due to the fact that cottonseed was transported up here for dairy feed, that's how a lot of this stuff was moved in here. And wildlife spreads it. I didn't realize water spread it. About 2 years ago, we had a farm where there was none on. The East Twin River flooded over, and I had a field that was just loaded with it. Deep flows too. So I think a chopper or two would be a good.
Yeah, let Erica know.
Yeah, I can reach out to Erica too. That's a good idea. I never thought of choppers.
And the canning companies, those snap bean harvesters, I've seen fields where there wasn't a problem, and they come in and they harvest and they clean them off. The farmer not expecting, to be an issue, and the next year he's got it. So
It's almost like all the signs you see by the lakes and streams, clean your boats off before you go to the next.
yeah,
Yeah, and we are doing, in the absence of Kate, we'll be posting that position, and I think it's gonna be more of an invasive species coordinator. But in the meantime, we're doing 2 grants with Glacierland RC&D, where we'll be doing the Clean Boats, Clean Water for next year. We're doing that grant, and then we're doing another grant for some invasive management species. So it's not falling off the radar, but we are partnering with other agencies.
it's a lot easier to keep it out. I mean, when you gotta start talking about spraying, spending $75 maybe to control weeds
Right.
for those soybeans, if you're only growing 40 bushels, that is not profitable.
Yeah,
So it's a lot easier to keep it, I tell my brother, if he's running the combine, if you see a plant, stop and pull it out. Do not run it through the combine and scatter it all over.
Right.
So,
Just one other point on that, it's here in Luxembourg, not in Royal Creek. So there's 2 locations for Royal Creek, so it's.
oh, I
all
said
in
rather
Lux-
than feed mill.
Yeah, but it's here in the Luxembourg
Oh.
location, right behind the fairgrounds. So, because Royal Creek has 2 locations.
USDA Wildlife Services.
No, nothing. Yeah, they reach out to us. We need to have them on the agenda.
Clark, you don't have nothing from FSA.
the only thing I got is my term is up, the end of the year, and my 9 years are in. So they're looking for people to run for my position from Carlton, Franklin, or Montpelier. So I had contacted a couple people. We were supposed to meet tomorrow. Zach had canceled the meeting. There's very little on the agenda that, you know, most of what gets done over there, he takes care of it and then we review it. But it's every other month meeting. But he sent an email saying there was very little for tomorrow. So we moved, you know, the next meeting is in October.
And then does that board appoint someone to our office?
Yes, yes, they, what do you call it, draw straws.
Who's all on that? board
Right now, Edith Blauser is the minority advisor. Rick Pay represents the northwest part of the county, and then Merlin Aubrey, who just got on, represents NFP, Pearson, part of West Kewan. West Kewan.
So will December will be your last meeting? Will we?
Yeah, December will be my last meeting, and then they'll have somebody on for a January meeting.
Okay, so there won't be a lull in there for one month.
No, there'll be somebody here from the committee going forward, so,
And they can't change your 9 years? You can't just
no.
re-up?
I'm not, my name isn't Donald Trump. I can't, you know, authoritarian.
Can you come back and forth like 3 or 4
In
years?
3
ago?
years, I can run
Yeah.
again in 3 years, because I know Merlin, I originally was on in the early 2000s. And then Tom Connick ran, and he was on, I believe, for 9 years. And then I know Merlin was on, I served with Merlin at that time, Gene Delva was on, but you got to take a 3-year break after the 9 years to come back on, so. And I guess if there's nobody else that wanted to do it, I wouldn't be opposed to running again at that point in time, but due to the rules we have to observe.
Yeah. Comments from state legislators are here today. Other agencies, organization reports. Tim, if you want to
Yep.
fill us
Give
in
you
on?
a little follow-up. Lisa Cushart called me from the Casco Daycare. I think I reported last month that they had a better test. They were at 7. They had planted some grass outside for one of the neighbors, and they were running sprinklers for using a lot more water than they normally would use. So they thought that helped. Well, this month, she just called me 3 days ago. I'm back up to a 10. The DNR person called her. She was quite upset. She was informed, she said it was a courtesy call from the DNR. They were now going to be having a meeting with her. They didn't tell her when. She no longer is going to be allowed to use bottled water in the building. Not.
Why?
She said there's a law out there that says that is a temporary fix. So she no longer can use bottled water for her infants. So she was quite upset. She didn't know. She said, I'm trying to do the safest thing I can till we can figure out, you know, what else I can do. And the agent told her, does not matter. You will be receiving a letter telling you no longer can use bottled water. That was a temporary fix. And she said, well, what do you want me to do? I can't get anyone to give me a reverse osmosis estimate even, because this is so unusual in this building, because you have to get it to every single faucet. They talked to her about drilling a new well, and she said, well, I can do that, but I don't know if that means that what happens if my numbers start going back up again in 3 years.
Right.
Why don't we wait till we can figure out, just let me stay on bottled water. I'm paying for it. I'm doing everything. And they told her, no, that was not an option anymore. I don't know what the time frame. She said she would let me know as soon as she received the letter. And I said, you know, I would gladly go and listen also and figure out what kind of crazy rule that is. You're
Yeah,
trying
I've
to
never
do the
heard of
safe
that.
thing. But she said it's legit. She fired the statute out or whatever it was that says you can't do that. So I told her we talked about it. I didn't know what to tell her. Keep doing the bottled water until you figure it out, and we'll go from there. And that has been my conversation. She sent me all the copies of the bills and all the stuff again, which I'll pass over to Davina.
Tim, and maybe you asked for this, is that considered bottled water, or the
Yes.
water cooler where you tip the 35 gallons?
That's all water.
That's all.
That's all bottled.
I think anything, yeah.
Anything that's not coming out of your tap and you're bringing in as an extra is bottled water.
All of her other results, I mean, everything else is good on her well. I mean, she sleeved it, she did everything. You know, it's just.
And
the
she doesn't
nitrate-
get any bacteria.
No, not at all. No, everything's been good, and that's why it's just baffling, you know, what else she can try to do. And I mean, we as a village have talked about trying to help her with drilling a new well if that's, you know, we can't have her shut down. we certainly can't have her. She's got to find an option here. So maybe they'll give her 6 months, maybe they'll give her a year. She doesn't know any of that yet.
Yeah,
Is there a chance of maybe contracting Representative Kitchens or Andre Jacques to get an exception to this, until we get this figured out, or?
Andre Jacques is the only one that has been responding to me. He did not. Nicholas Cabrillion, his assistant, has been emailing me back and forth the last week. And he pretty much I explained the whole situation to him, not with the bottled water yet, Clark. We were dealing with what can we do to help with our nitrate issue, and his response, he gave me a whole bunch of links and other people to call and said, well, drill a new well, and, gave me a bunch of different state statutes and stuff. So I didn't get really anywhere with them. I asked, is there any of our CARES dollars or something that we could do, federal dollars, to try to help drill the new well so they're not stuck with that. And I really haven't got an answer. He is the only office that has responded. Nobody else has emailed me back or anything. And I talked to Joel Kitchens, and he sort of said, oh, thanks for the info, and that's what I got. So Mike Gallagher has not responded to me at all. So that's where I'm at. I told her I'd report, and we're going to keep watching. And as soon as she lets me know, all the local farmers around the area, Pagels know, Kinnards know, everybody's aware of what she's going through. I haven't hidden anything from anybody. So they've been trying to change their practices the best they possibly can also. I've noticed that from the neighbors. They've been spreading way far away, and they've been doing different things, but we can't answer why she's so high and there's other people right there and their nitrates are fine. It's just been really bizarre. So.
And in the well testing, Davina, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you guys get a group of people from Castle
We
to
did.
test, so we'll know when those nitrates come back?
Just sort of
Yeah.
scattered through the village, yeah.
yeah, we haven't got the nitrate data back
Right.
yet.
Yep, and we're trying to dot it then to see, it's been it really has random. And I do believe it's the shallower wells, but she's not one with a shallow well. Her well is
And
not
they're in the
shallow.
sand, so I mean, they can be pulling from, anyone for when you have the nitrates like that, it's gonna be, it can be pulling from fertilizer
Right.
too. So it's not gonna be just manure.
Yeah.
It could be fertilizer from multiple different places. So
And like I reported at the full board, we did televise all of the sewer lines in that area. We went through the village, spent $7,000. We televised everything in that area just to
Mhm.
see. And that's our new part of the village, just to make sure
Yeah.
that we didn't have an issue.
right,
we
so
were
you can
contributing.
rule out septic because there's no,
Right.
septics in the area.
So-
So with nitrates, it's coming from some kind of
From the
egg.
So we're gonna keep working on it, and she's just fit to be tied. I mean, she's being very understanding, but she's just like, I don't know what to do anymore. Tell me what to do. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
Has the village kitchen, has their nitrate levels been steady since they drilled a new well, or how is?
It's been 3 years now, maybe, that Chris and Gary drilled that. They've snuck up a little bit. Clark, I think last I talked to Chris, they were around that 3.2 where we're at. And she Tesla, but they use just gobs of water. You know what I mean? They're constantly, where the daycare, it's such a small amount of water that they're running through that big building that,
Right.
she's not flushing it through. So,
And anything above 2 is being human influence.
and it's just unfortunate for her. She's running a daycare with little children that her standards are way different. So I'll keep you informed. Just
Keep us
keep
informed,
going
and
with it.
let's
So,
hope that she can figure something out with the
Yeah.
DNR, because I think that's crazy that they can't use bottled water.
yeah, she was trying to do the safe thing. When
Right.
she told me that, I said, you gotta be kidding me. And she said, no, I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, but we don't work too much with the businesses
Yeah.
because they're under a different rule than private households. And I have nothing on the TMDL, so there's been no new update from that.
Is the digester running? I thought I seen something in the news, where they were breaking ground on that digester in,
Over in Brown County,
Allentown,
yeah, I've not heard.
Wrightstown,
yeah.
Wrightstown.
We'll move on to scheduling future meetings.
Can I add one
Oh,
thing?
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There's a nitrate series that's going on in partnership with DNR and UW Extension right now in regards to I believe, kind of in regards to the new NR 151 rules, which are addressing nitrates. Those are occurring. The first one occurred last Friday. The second one will be this Friday. And pardon me for looking at my phone, but I can give a description based on the email.
Yeah, I think if you just Google nitrate series DNR, it'll pull up the links in which you can register.
Yep. And yeah, I think you can click on, you don't even need to register. You just, it's from noon till 1 o'clock on the next 2 Fridays. Next Friday is scenarios for reducing manure applications on permeable soils during fall and cover crops. A review of research and history of their use to minimize nitrogen leaching losses. The 20th is new opportunities with cover crops for Wisconsin farmers and innovative partnerships and advances in agricultural nitrogen management. And I believe there's going to be one more that's kind of to be determined yet. So I don't think that's.
What was the topic last Friday?
Last Friday was overview of nitrogen loss models for use in agriculture and estimates of leaching nitrogen from a variety of Wisconsin farms. I sat in on that one. There were a number of different models that they were kind of going through. Francisco Aguilaro from UW Extension, or from UW, kind of laid through a bunch of the different models that are out there. A lot of them weren't familiar names. I mean, they're, I think, used, but what I think they're hoping to do is get comfortable with some of those models that they maybe try to import them into SNAP Plus, being a very common nutrient management program in the state.
Because if everything goes right, the new nitrate rules for NR 151 will come out, I believe, in like 2023, if everything goes right. However, they don't have to be implemented at that time, because until you have AdCap 50 and cost share, in which we don't even have AdCap 50 from DADCAP updated to include the new Silurian dolomite restrictions. So I'm hoping they open AdCap 50 soon to do the nitrate and the Silurian, but I'm not sure. I think we're looking at like 2023.
The other part of Friday's discussion was Matt, I can't think of his last name right now, from Roar, yes, from UW, was going over nitrogen use efficiency, which I'm sure Clark probably seen at some of the, it's on UW Discovery Farms. But basically it's a way that a farm can measure how they put nitrogen out, how much compared to yield, and see how efficiently that corn crop or grain crop pulled up that nitrogen application. So there are some, and I believe they've tried to tame down the amount of data that was in there so that farmers could use it on farm and assess some of their own practices that they're doing within their own operations. So that was kind of the second part of the Fridays.
Have they recommended using like a nitrogen stabilizer yet on sidegrass nitrogen? I know I talked to Kerry Lebowski a few years ago. And he said because you're applying the nitrogen so close to when the crop needs it, that they did not recommend something like Instinct at that point in time. Like if you were, going not on the surface, routine, obviously, it's, if you're going to broadcast it on the surface, you have to use it on urea. But have you heard whether they're recommending anything yet for side dress applications?
I think in the new 590 standard, there's something with the permeable soils that will trigger if you're doing a side dress application that you should be using some type of and there's so many of them that, I mean, I agree the Agritane is more from a volatilization standpoint, which as temperature increases and if you don't get a rain event to get it into the soil, that's a loss that will occur to the atmosphere. But there are also inhibitors that I believe help stabilize that nitrate once it's in the ground, that it ties tighter to the soil particles and remains there in a heavy rain event. So hopefully, so there are products that are out there that can help. And like I said, the new 590 standard, I believe, triggers only based on what soil types are occurring within the given field. So there are some tools that are saying, hey, wait a minute, you have these type of soils in this field, you should be treating it this way.
Because I know when you're talking about the well, nitrate levels going up, it would make sense at the end of June, first part of July, with all the rain we had. flush some of this stuff down through. It's just, with the amount of rain we get.
Okay, thank you, Nick, on that update. I also want to add, Rick Clark will be coming and speaking, I think it's next week at Deer Run Dairy for Peninsula Pride Farms. He's is he from Indiana, Nick? Regenerative agriculture, planting green, all that kind of stuff. So Peninsula Pride is bringing him up.
Right.
I think it's 17th from 11 to 2:30.
Correct.
Jamie Patton will also be speaking, and Barry Rules, there will be soil pit and the rainfall simulator. That's open and free to the public. So there's some stuff out on the internet. If people want to, I believe, just sign up by August 11th, because there will be a free lunch put on. So I think I've heard Rick Clark speak once already, a pretty interesting guy, and how he does his regenerative agriculture and planting green and cover crops. So if you have a chance, I would suggest coming out to it. Moving on, if there's nothing else, we'll go to scheduling future meetings. We'll keep I believe it's second Tuesday of the month.
Yeah, the only one September 14th works. I am going to be gone on October 12th, 11th and 12th. So I don't know if like October 5th would work or the 13th. Both those days would work for me for October. I'm just gone the 11th as well.
We're in 11. So what were you suggesting to me? I'm sorry, 4th or the 5th?
Yeah, I'm here I'm gone from the 8th through the 12th.
The 5th would work for me. I'm open as now.
That'd be the first Tuesday.
First Tuesday, if we move it in October, would that work?
I guess it will.
Okay. So yeah, so then September 14th, which is the second Tuesday, and then we'll go October 5th right now.
Do we need a motion on those? or-
Nope.
Chairman's wrap up. I know, I just want to add that being the new chairman, taking over for Chuck, I hope we can continue the success we have in Kewaunee County here, moving forward with sensible solutions and using science, and keep moving forward to take care of some of these issues we have. With that, I'll need a motion for adjournment.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
I
Motion passes.
All right, hold on a second.